had in the shop, and it fermented on top of that. And I thought that was really weird. So I just kind of let it go just to see what happened because, scientists. And it actually turned out way better than the strains that I was using before. So I ended up harvesting all the yeast from that batch and going through plates and separating out just the different things that were growing in it to try to figure out what it was. I still have no idea what it is because I haven't sent it off to a lab yet, but I did culture up a whole bunch of it, and then I've kept some of it refrigerated. I've frozen some of it. I've dehydrated some of it and dried it out. I put some in like the old school oak stick, just so that I've always got a few different samples of that strain, so that when I am ready to actually send it off to the lab and figure out what it is, I can actually do that.
That's pretty cool.
Answer your question.
Yeah.
Never ask a scientist a scientific question.
All right.
I try to rein myself in, but I'm not always good at it.
Yeah, no. We like that.
Scientific answer.
Yeah.
What got you started? What was your inspiration then? If we're not going with scientific question.
No. We like science. This is a geeky hobby, But
started like mead in general. It was literally just the desire to make my own alcohol.
So you had
That's as good a reason as any.
So you never tasted mead before the first time you made it?
No, I had not. Didn't know what it was. Didn't know anything about it. Just we found this family recipe and we're like, hey, what the heck is this? Hey, that's alcohol and it's from honey. That's weird. Let's see what that does.
That's not surprising, college and alcohol and etc. Sorry. Did we lose Eric again?
No,
I'm still here.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to cough in you guys' ears. I'd usually try to mute when that happens, but that one caught me unaware. I'm sitting here juggling all the sound levels because for whatever reason, Skype is playing heck with my sound levels today. So that's why I sound a little disjointed because I'm got two keyboards and two screens going. I'm trying to remember which computer do I need to do this thing on.
So you wanted to make alcohol. You found an old recipe. You've gone and decided to go with mead of all things when you want to make alcohol. What caused you to want to, and how did you make the leap from being a home mead maker and going professional?
Just a big thing is I was always doing experiments. My kitchen was getting full of mead, and I got a point in my career that I was looking for something different to do. I needed another challenge. And everyone that had tried the mead that I'd been making wanted more of it. So when I was kind of polling friends and family, I'm like, okay, so I'm looking for a new career thing. I think I'm going to start another business. What do you think I'm good at that would make a good business that you'd be interested in? And it was like 95% of everybody that I talked to was like, you should sell your mead because we would like to be able to buy that more often than just, when we get it on our birthday or a holiday party or something. And when I looked at the industry, there was less than 100 people doing it legally at the time. And I thought that was a pretty good place to be as far as, starting businesses go. And that's proven to be right because it's over 350 now and probably 700 and something by next year. And who knows after that.
Actually coming up on 500 now.
Time to jump on it. Whew,
yeah, I know. And it's I was doing the math, and it's something like a new meadery every week right now.
I didn't think the feds worked that fast.
Well, yeah, but keep in mind they're piled up for months and months and months. So there's a steady stream of backed up meaderies coming out of the TTB. So takes as long as it takes, right?
Now, right?
Yeah.
So when you do batches with fruits and spices, do you start with a base batch and add in secondary, or do you do primary fermentation, or does it depend on the batch?
It depends what I'm making. If it's something like berries, I tend to do about 80 to 90% of my fruit up front, with pectic enzyme, and then I freeze the 10 to 20%. And then after primary fermentation, I rack everything out, get rid of all the fruit, all that kind of stuff, and then I put the frozen berries back in secondary, and I use that as kind of a back sweetener, just to bring it up usually, because I will usually ferment dry at that point. And then I'll back sweeten with the fresh fruit that's been frozen, so you get all the extra sugars and colors and aromatics and flavors and stuff out of it. And then, so that's that. If it's like a stone fruit, I tend to just throw it all in up front. If it's spices, it depends on the spice. But for the most part, I will usually make basically a big tea bag in a hops bag type thing and put it in secondary, and then sample it like every day or every other day just to see where the flavors are at. And then yank the tea bag when it's done, and that usually just goes into my traditional mead.
Okay. With your stone fruit, do you remove the stones, or do you ferment with the stones?
I ferment with the stones. There's absolutely zero evidence that it actually causes any problems.
It certainly doesn't cause any problems. It does change the flavor profile. That's what I was asking.
It does. It tastes a little bit closer to fresh fruit, in my experience. Because when you eat a peach, for example, you get a little bit of like the tannic or the tart from the skin. You get a little bit of the bitter from the pit as you get closer to the center of the fruit, and then you get the sweet from the entire thing. If you use the entire fruit, you get all of those flavors as part of just kind of the blend of flavors that turns into the final product. And I tend to leave everything in until I just start to get the first hints of that bitter flavor, and that's when I yank the fruit out. Because then I know that it's, once it balances and after I've racked it and filtered it, then it will be, it won't be a strong bitter flavor at all. It'll just be like a very subtle, like when you bite into the center of the peach.
Okay, cool.
That's really interesting, because that's one of the things I noticed when I was doing cherry melomels, the difference between just cherries and cherries with, in my case, I used Malab, denatured crushed cherry pits, was phenomenal. I mean, it was like two different meads, completely different.
Yes. And it's not to say one's right or wrong. It just kind of depends on what flavors you're going for.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, I mean, in the case of the cherry, I don't know. Have you done a cherry mel for the meadery?
I'm not sure if I want to say yes, but I have an experiment batch that's tart pie cherries and a pepper.
Oh.
So you get like the tart plus the honey, and then just a little bit of a heat that just kind of burns your mouth for a second, and then the honey washes it away.
Nice.
It's pretty good stuff.
That sounds very interesting. But yeah, you don't want to tell us because it's not real yet.
It's not real yet, yeah.
I hear you. It's still in Mead dreamland. Yeah. The cherry mel that I did years and years ago, I haven't done one in a while, but it was a fairly simple melomel. Cherries, water, cherries, honey, yeast, and I used cherry juice as well. So I had, real cherries or like actual flash frozen that I got from home when I went home to Michigan, because it's northern Michigan is cherry country, and so I got the flash frozen fresh cherries that had literally just been frozen like a few weeks earlier, brought those home, picked up 2 or 3 jugs of cherry juice, brought that home, and actually got local honey too, acacia honey from the farm that's next to my great-grandfather's old farm, and did it with that. And it was adding I did it all as a traditional cherry melomel, just straight up. And when it was getting to the end, I'm tasting it, and I'm going, it's not right. Something's, when you're cooking, you can tell something's missing, but you're not sure what it is. And so I went to Penzeys online and started just paging through their catalog online and going, I don't know. Okay, no, not that, not that, not that. And then I stumbled across Malab. I'd never heard of it before that, and was like, well, that's interesting. Denatured crushed cherry pits, common in Iranian cooking. All right, let's order some of that. That sounds neat. So I ordered a bag of that and tossed a couple handfuls into, it was a 5-gallon batch, tossed a couple handfuls in there and just let it set on that, like on oak, for a couple weeks. And then when I racked it again, all of a sudden I had this nutty, smoky sort of flavor in the background that wasn't there before, and it totally changed the character of the mead and made it so much more complex. It was so much nicer.
Absolutely. There's certain cultures that actually use the pit for cherry to make like foods and things.
Oh yeah,
like you're talking about Maleb.
It's a spice. You know, it's used as an adjunct for food, like pine nuts. It's the same kind, which is what Penzies had it for. But I was not familiar with that particular item in cooking, so it was a new one for me. I've since used it in all sorts of things, but
yeah. Well, it's interesting because everyone like freaks out when you're talking about like stone fruits or things with pits in them because of the amygdala that's in it, because your body converts it into
arsenic,
cyanide, basically.
Cyanide, arsenic.
Well, yeah, but the amount you'd have to eat of that stuff.
I know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like
you
need
it's
to
a
eat.
dosage over time in a very quick period of time, and your body can't physically process it. You have to overwhelm your body's ability to process it, and that takes.
I think I read you'd have to eat like a gallon of apple seeds, just the seeds, in order to have any appreciable effect.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a stupidly large
physically
amount.
impossible to do.
Yeah. Well, no, it's possible, but you'd have to work
You're
at
not
it really,
gonna do it
really hard. Yeah,
accidentally.
it's not going to happen.
Yeah, you're not doing this accidentally.
Exactly.
So yeah, I noticed that you sort of responded rather quickly when you said you throw in this whole fruit. You were like, "Yes, but it won't kill you." So you don't get that question. Yeah, never get that question, I gather.
No, they're like, wait, you use the seeds? Are you serious? Are you trying to kill people? Okay, let's have a science lesson here for a second.
That's beautiful.
No, my question was purely taste related, but
Well, I think I left the pits in the cherries when I did the cherry mel, and I used 5 pounds of cherries in 1 gallon, and it still never tasted like cherries. So
I can taste
What
it
kind of cherries
when
did you
it's in there, the pit, but I actually
ones.
like the flavour. So
they were cheap sweet cherries that I got on sale, and I figured, what the heck, they were a buck a pound, so that was about as cheap as I was ever going to find them. And no, I don't actually know what kind they were. They were just, packaged in a blister pack called cherries.
Were they bright red or dark red?
They were a dark red cherry, and they were a sweet, not a tart.
Okay.
But
I'll bet that.
yeah, the only time I ever get a cherry flavor from this, the only time I ever get a cherry flavor from this stuff is if I've cooked it. Like I got cherry flavored poached pears when I used a little bit of it to poach some pears once. And that's the only time the cherry flavor comes out is when it gets cooked. But that's just my
so
weird
you're masking
batch.
it with something. Yeah.
Yeah, it may just
would
be that
almost
it was
suggest
kind
a
of a hot
different yeast.
alcohol batch.
Well,
I would
what's
probably suggest a different yeast at that point.
yeah?
Like that's
Yeah,
where
I
I would
don't-
probably use like a Cote de Blanc, because it should pull a lot of that flavor and aromatic out of there.
Yeah, I think if I were to do cherry again, I'd probably use the same yeast that I use for most of the rest of the fruit melts that I do, which would be the RC212.
Yeah.
From yeah, just because that's what's easily available for me, and I found it's a pain in the arse yeast, but it gives really good results if you take care of it.
I won't be using that again unless it's not summer.
Mead explosion.
Yeah, no, not a mead. Well, yeah, it was a little bit of a mead explosion, but it was really more of a mead ooze. It kind of boobled up all the way to the top and out the airlock and down the sides. But no, it was just that it's just not happy at anything over like 68, and you start getting into 70s and 80s.
Make sure its pH is happy and
Yeah, well, you start getting into 70s and 80s.
fussy pants.
Yeah, you start getting into 70s and 80s, though, and it's just a very unhappy yeast. It throws way too many fusels, and now these meads are going to have to sit and age for, like, ever. So,
Well, that one specifically actually produces a lot of hydrogen sulfide, too. So if you're not real careful with, like, nutrient additions and stuff like that, that's probably where a lot of your flavor comes from.
Yeah,
Like,
I
the really
was...
bad ones that have to
Yeah, I was meticulous about, literally down to measuring it 2-3 times a day and and all that kind of thing. So I was pretty meticulous about nutrient additions, but the problem was that because I was doing it in the summer, because I'm an idiot, and it was like 100 plus every single day outside, which meant my air conditioning unit was having to work overtime to keep the house at a reasonable temperature of 72. I